It's hard to ignore, all these headlines about shelters overflowing here in Ottawa.
Yeah.
Feels like homelessness is just like more and more visible these days, wouldn't you say?
I'd agree with that, yeah.
So today, we're really diving deep into homelessness in Ottawa. And we want to go beyond just the numbers, really understand the people at the heart of all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, talk about potential solutions. We're drawing from a lot of different sources today. I mean, we've got raw data from the City of Ottawa itself, Statistics Canada,
Right.
but also some personal stories from CBC News, the Ottawa Citizen,
Yeah.
even a local initiative, the Hot Potato.
Interesting.
Plus, we're going to tap into reports from the Homeless Hub and Capital Current.
Excellent.
So really trying to cover a lot of ground here.
Yeah, it's fascinating because it's not just growing homelessness in Ottawa, but it's becoming more complex. Like, it's intertwined with the mental health crisis, addiction, this rising cost of living.
Yeah.
I think we've seen a real shift, especially since the pandemic, and it's really impacting all parts of the city.
Definitely. And I think that's something we really want to drive home in this deep dive today.
Yeah.
It's easy to talk about the numbers, but this is really about the human impact.
Absolutely.
For example, our sources highlighted the story of Norman Quenville.
Yeah.
He actually spent 5 months at the Ottawa Mission Shelter.
Okay.
And, he talked about finding peace. Can you imagine finding peace in a small grove of trees by a busy station?
Wow.
That was Norman's sanctuary. And he said, I had to get away from there to keep my own sanity. Like, that really struck me. The unseen toll this takes on people.
Yeah. It's a reminder, isn't it? Behind these statistics are individuals like Norman who are facing just incredible challenges. And I think what he said speaks to a broader issue, too, which is this lack of safe and private spaces for people experiencing homelessness. It's more than just needing a roof, right? It's about having that place where you feel safe and you can maintain a sense of dignity.
Absolutely. And I think it's easy to look away from homelessness. It's not always right in our faces. But one quote from our research really stuck with me. Before you ignore another homeless person on the street, just remember that could be someone's father or someone's mother, and they have a story. It's a powerful reminder that it could happen to anyone. This could be us.
Exactly.
And that it's really our shared responsibility to try to address this.
It is.
So how is this impacting our city as a whole? I mean, we see it on the streets, but what's going on behind the scenes?
Well, I think a good place to start is the strain on social services. So, for example, the Ottawa Mission, right on the front lines, they're facing a perfect storm of challenges. Increased mental health needs, substance use is on the rise, and, of course, rising food costs.
Yeah.
Their resources were already stretched then.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
And then the pandemic hit.
Oh, wow.
So they're really struggling to keep up.
And it breaks my heart to think about families, especially, who are caught in this cycle.
Right.
I read that shelter used by families increased by 33%
That's right.
in 2014 and 2017.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. And that was before the pandemic.
Yeah, exactly. The pandemic has really pushed more families to the brink. This is the fastest growing demographic in Ottawa, homelessness among families.
Really?
And, you think about it, the trauma, the instability, the impact that this has on children, their development, these are ripple effects that will last a lifetime.
For sure. And it's not just shelters, right, that are feeling the pressure. This impacts public health, too.
It does.
Especially, think about COVID-19.
Oh, absolutely. Think about it. Limited access to health care, hygiene.
Basic hygiene. Yeah.
Even just public spaces during those lockdowns.
Right.
It was a perfect storm for outbreaks.
Yeah.
And then any existing health conditions people were dealing with were just made worse.
Absolutely.
And of course, a huge burden then on our medical system, our first responders, further straining already limited resources.
Right. It's tough because we can't ignore the link between homelessness and crime either.
It's a complex issue.
For sure.
But the statistics are clear. There is a correlation there.
Right.
And this raises safety concerns, not just for those who are experiencing homelessness, but for the community as a whole.
Absolutely.
And sadly, it perpetuates these negative stereotypes that make it even harder to break that cycle.
For sure. It's like this tangled web of challenges.
Yeah.
And it all comes at a cost.
Yeah.
So what kind of economic impact are we talking about here?
It's substantial. The financial burden on our city is huge. So you have to think about the cost of emergency shelters, healthcare, policing, social services. And these are essential services.
Of course.
But they represent a significant drain on municipal resources. And then what happens? That impacts the city's budget.
Right.
Which then limits its ability to invest in other areas.
Right.
And then it has that ripple effect. It impacts businesses, tourism.
Absolutely. And then on top of all of that, we can't forget about the housing crisis itself, right? I mean, that lack of affordable housing is a major driver of homelessness.
Definitely.
And it feels like we are losing the battle.
It's a tough one.
It feels like it.
Yeah.
And the loss of older, more affordable units, that's got to be exacerbating everything.
For sure, because the demand is rising.
Right.
And we're grappling with that dwindling supply.
Yeah.
And so that obviously creates immense pressure on low-income families, individuals, pushes them closer to that edge.
It's tough. It's a vicious cycle.
It is.
That's increasingly hard to escape. It sounds like homelessness is having a really profound impact on our city.
It is.
From our social services that are strained to public health to this economic burden. It's like it's touching every aspect of life here.
It is. It's everywhere.
And we can't overlook the devastating impact this has on education and employment. Our research showed that young people, especially when they're experiencing homelessness, they're far less likely to finish high school.
Right.
And it just perpetuates that cycle of poverty.
It does.
And of course, without a stable home, finding and keeping a job, it's incredibly challenging. It's just like this story of compounding disadvantages. But knowing all of this, what can we actually do? Like, what are the solutions? What's being explored here in Ottawa?
That's the big question, right? It can feel overwhelming.
Totally.
But there actually is a lot happening in Ottawa.
Okay.
One approach that's showing a lot of promise is housing first.
Okay.
And it really is what it sounds like. You prioritize getting people into stable housing immediately.
Okay.
And then you provide support services. So that could be mental health care, addiction treatment.
Got it. Right.
Right there, same building.
So instead of waiting for someone to get better before you give them a home, you're giving them a home so they can get better.
Exactly.
It seems so logical.
It is. It addresses that need for shelter while also acknowledging that people need more than just a roof over their heads.
Right.
They need that support to really thrive. The Alliance to End Homelessness Ottawa, they're a big advocate for this.
Okay.
And they're doing some really innovative work in Ottawa. They actually helped implement this program that provides housing and support for chronically homeless veterans.
Wow, that's amazing. So are there any specific, I don't know, successes or challenges they've encountered with implementing housing first in Ottawa?
Yeah, they've had some real wins, particularly with that veterans program.
Okay.
One challenge, I think, is just securing enough affordable housing units in a market where things are just getting more and more expensive.
Of course, yeah.
So their advocacy goes beyond just housing first.
Okay.
They're really pushing for that increased investment in affordable housing right across the board.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It seems like even with the best intentions, you can only go so far if there aren't enough places for people to live.
Exactly.
What about preventing people from becoming homeless in the first place?
Right.
Are there initiatives on that front?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, prevention is key. Early intervention is crucial. So think about programs that offer job training, mental health support, family support services. These kinds of things can really address those root causes before someone ends up in that crisis.
Before it even gets to that point.
Exactly.
Right, it's like the old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Right. Exactly, yeah.
It sounds like tackling homelessness in Ottawa, it takes this multi-pronged approach.
It does. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution. We need housing first, more investment in affordable housing, and then these robust prevention programs.
Right.
And it can't just be government programs and these big organizations. Individuals have a role to play too.
So what can, like, individuals like me or anyone listening, what can we actually do? It's easy to feel like, you know, you're just one person.
Right.
Like it's a drop in the bucket. You know?
Yeah. That's a question I get a lot, actually. And I think it's important to remember that, you know, every drop does matter.
Okay.
I think one of the most powerful things you can do is just be more aware.
Okay.
Really understand, like, the complexities of this issue, you know, the impact it's having on Ottawa and what solutions are being explored. Talk to your friends and family about it. Challenge your own assumptions.
Knowledge is power. But beyond awareness, are there, you know, tangible actions that people can take?
Absolutely. Volunteering your time.
Okay.
at a local shelter or an organization is great.
Yeah.
Even an hour or two a week can make a difference.
Yeah, for sure. What if someone's thinking, okay, but I don't really have a lot of free time.
Right.
What else?
Donations are always crucial. Even a small amount can go a long way.
Okay.
You know, organizations like the Ottawa Mission, they can use that to provide meals, shelter, support services. And don't underestimate the power of advocacy.
Oh, right.
Write to your elected officials. Support organizations that are working on affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
Make your voice heard.
Speaking of organizations, for listeners who are like ready to take action, are there any specific groups that you would recommend that they support or learn more about?
Yeah, for sure. The Alliance to End Homelessness Ottawa, they're fantastic. Go to their website.
Okay.
They have a really comprehensive list of local organizations that are doing great work.
Perfect. So whether you're looking to volunteer, donate, or just get informed, that's a great place to start.
It is.
And we will be sure to link to their website in our show notes. You don't even have to remember it. It'll be right there.
Perfect.
But sometimes I think the simplest actions can have the biggest impact too. Like if you encounter someone experiencing homelessness, treat them with dignity and respect.
It goes a long way.
Yeah. It's easy to get caught up in our own lives, I find.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we're all part of this community.
Mm.
Everyone deserves compassion. This deep dive has been really eye-opening for me. It's such a big issue, but I'm really encouraged by the work being done by groups like the Alliance and just individuals like our listeners.
Me too. And you know what? It's a multifaceted problem.
Yeah.
But we can work towards a future where everyone in Ottawa has that safe and affordable place to call home.
That is a future worth striving for. So thank you so much for joining us today.
It was my pleasure.
And remember, even small actions can make a big difference.
They do.
Let's work together to make Ottawa a city where everyone has a place to belong.